This is Beyond the Cover, and this is your host, Gary Benoit. And we're so delighted to have you with us today because we have a very special installment for this program. And what we'll be talking about is Trumpworld. This is not just another issue of the New American Magazine, as important as those issues are, but this is a special collector's edition that is comprised of information that is exclusive, loaded with graphics, having to do with Trumpworld. And so let's begin. What is Trumpworld? And we have with us today a very special guest, Dennis Behreandt. Dennis, you're, of course, the publisher of the New American Magazine, but more relevant perhaps to this particular program is you are the conceiver of Trumpworld. So what do we mean by Trumpworld?
Well, thanks, Gary. Glad to talk with you today, and glad to talk with everyone about Trumpworld. Trumpworld is more than just President Trump, and maybe the best way to start is to go back and think about how we conceived this entire collector's edition of the magazine. Typically, presidencies are only judged in their fullest extent many years down the road as historians look back and try to put things into context with the broader trends that are happening. Because as you're close to things temporally in time, you may not really have the full understanding of how a particular major event, such as a particular presidency, might fit in with cultural, sociological, economic, and all other civilizational trends. But we thought when we were looking at the 2016 election of President Trump, this was really a change in direction for politics in the United States of America from all that had gone before for over 100 years. And we wanted to find out, could we, as a team here with the New American, could we put that into some sort of greater context? And the more I thought about it and the more we talked as a team, I thought, you know what, I think we can do that. It's really a special situation that President Trump was elected in 2016 against all odds. I think anyone in 2016, 2015 would have thought, well, the odds-on favorite is Hillary Clinton. So the election of President Trump really stands out as something of a unique event in American history. So what we really tried to do was almost probably an impossible task, which is to, at our close removal in time from that event, can we step back a little bit and put it in broader context? And if we think we can do that, that's going to be something that is really a unique achievement. And we wanted all of our readers to have access to that achievement. And so we thought, this is more than a regular issue of the New American Magazine. This is really something that's collectible, and we should make it extra special that way. So from every angle, from all the writers involved who are the best in the business, to the design staff, choosing the best possible photography, laying this issue out in a very special way. And by the way, it is very special. You will find no advertising in this magazine edition. You will find that it is longer than a normal edition of the New American Magazine, almost 100 pages. And you will find that the quality of the materials is just top-notch. It's really, really a nice presentation. So it fully lives up to what we intended, which is a collector's edition of the New American Magazine.
Now, I know when you say Trumpworld, a lot of people are going to think this is about Trump, but of course you indicated there's a lot more to this than Trump. But in terms of Trump becoming president, could he have become president without Trumpworld?
That is an excellent question, Gary, and we thought about that very long and very hard, and the answer that we've come up with is that absolutely could not have happened without the much larger Trumpworld. So what is Trumpworld? Trumpworld, I think, starts way before anyone thought about Trump as a potential political candidate. We're talking many, many years ago, and there has been a growing orientation in some parts of the American society, I think, to be more in favor of the doctrines of freedom. Very foundational to that has been the work of the John Birch Society and the many, many chapters across the country working for many years to spread the word about freedom, the adherence to the United States Constitution, the importance of that. Building upon that, we've seen several sub-movements come down the pike. So you've seen the silent majority. More recently, you've seen the Tea Party movement grow up. And then from that, we saw the Ron Paul Revolution. And I think that was the precipitating factor. All that work led up to a body of Americans who started to have a much stronger growing understanding of what they were facing and making sense of the problems that they were running into that were trickling down from the deep state's control of all the branches of the federal government, trickling down and really impacting the lives of the average American, seeing their jobs shipped overseas, seeing rising costs, seeing rising regulation that impacted their lives and their businesses and their children. This woke people up, and that created a contingent of Americans who were ready for supporting a non-traditional candidate, and that brought Trump into office in 2016 above who was the quintessential deep state establishment candidate, Hillary Clinton.
Right. Now, this movement that you're talking about, Trumpworld, obviously Trump recognized that movement was there, and he offered the movement something to maybe a greater degree that others who are serious contenders for president have not offered. Going back through many presidential campaigns, Republican and Democrat, that appealed to that movement, that resonated. And, I can think of the phrase America First. That was the agenda, really, for Trump, to put America first, and that included things like protecting the borders. But what happened then, Dennis? It seemed like the roof fell in, and all of a sudden, Trump was supposed to be the most hated man in America.
Well, he was supposed to be the most hated man in America. And if you look at the mainstream networks, for sure they worked overtime to paint that picture. But that never stuck. They really went to the Steele dossier. They went to the Russiagate hoax.
Right.
That never carried enough water to really convince anyone that it was accurate and true. It may have sown a few seeds of doubt, but largely that was confined to the extreme left. The extreme left bought into that and pushed that forward as hard as they could, but it never resonated with the American people. The American people, by and large, never seemed to buy into that. And of course, now we know, without any doubt at all, that it was completely a bogus, really conspiracy theory from the left that they were pushing. And we know, in fact, that if there was any candidate that was actually colluding with the Russians, it was the Clinton apparatus.
Well, of course, there's conspiracy theory. There's also conspiracy fact.
Yeah.
And obviously, we all have a responsibility to look at the facts and figure out what is true and not true. But I'll tell you, in terms of what the left likes to call a conspiracy theory, by which they mean something that is bogus, I can't think of a bigger whopper. Can you, Dennis, than this idea that Putin put Trump into the White House?
There's no mechanism for that to take place.
It's just so ridiculous. And yet at the same time, that there really are power players. There really is an establishment. Today it's often referred to as a deep state, a state within a state, an invisible government behind the visible government of the United States. And these people have been colluding, and they've done so regardless of the president is a Republican or a Democrat, to try to destroy the independence, the freedom of the United States, and to replace it with world government. But and of course that was the message of the John Birch Society going back many years ago. And today we see the facts in front of us to such an extent. It doesn't even seem appropriate to use the word conspiracy anymore because it's so out in the open. But doesn't it seem like with what Trump did and the way the deep state responded to him, and they try to just destroy him, that this deep state, this conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, this organized plan to try to bring down the United States of America, that it has been exposed like never before?
Oh, it's definitely been exposed like never before. A lot of the credit for that goes to, on the one hand, Trump himself, but on the other hand, the mass movement of Americans that we're calling Trumpworld for this collector's edition, who saw through the lies. So many Americans have woken up and understood what has been happening to them and what they've been seeing in the country that previously didn't make any sense. It's all gelled, it's all come together. And now there's 75 million Americans who are no longer buying the lies that are being fed to them by the mainstream. And that's really refreshing. And it really sets the stage for optimism. I know we've all been living through this horrible COVID experience with the way that the state's been mismanaging this, and the states, plural, as well as the federal government mismanaging it. That's been hyper attenuated by the Biden administration since then. No one's buying into that in the United States. Very few people are, and fewer every day are buying into it. And that's cause for a great deal of optimism. If they could have, they would have fastened an Australian level, or now an Austrian level tyranny on the United States the moment they had the opportunity. They tried, they failed. They're not going to be able to succeed. And now, if you look at all the polling, if you look at all the punditry, 2024, the left is running scared because 2024 looks like, and how could it be anything other than a landslide in favor of a pro-American first candidate?
It certainly looks that way, and Dennis, I think you're underscoring a very important point, because even though this edition that we put out, this special collector's edition, this book, zine, has historical information. It does talk, for example, about the Trump presidency, the extraordinary presidency, where even though we would not personally agree with him in every instance, nonetheless, he really was a huge stumbling block and did many things to interfere with the establishment game plan to bring about world government. So yeah, it's a collector's edition in the sense that we can look at this Trump presidency, what's happened, but it's much more than that, isn't it? Because it's would you say this bookazine, in addition to being a collector's edition, is also very forward-looking?
Oh, it's extremely forward-looking because, as we've said, Trumpworld is not Trump in and of himself. Trumpworld predates Trump as a movement,
right.
And Trumpworld will postdate Trump as a movement. And that mass Americans who have come awake to the value and importance of freedom, the value and importance of our Constitution, the value and importance of limited government, the value and importance of the Bill of Rights, for the first time have seen that be concretely impacting the changes that are happening there, the attacks that are happening there, have seen that concretely impacting their own lives. And they've come awake to that being a very specific, credible threat to themselves, their businesses, their families. And frankly, the American people are an activist people, always have been. They're not going to take that, and they're going to react accordingly. It gets to the heart of the polls I just talked about, and the perceptions I just talked about leading into next year's midterms and then 2024. The movement is clear the direction of the country. And if you're on the opposite side, you have to be, a little bit nervous about what's happening. And I think you see that nervousness reflected in their actions. The things that they've been attempting to do are, I think, moves out of desperation.
Right.
Egregious lockdowns, never before contemplated in any way, whether it be scientific or culturally within the United States, to try to push lockdowns, to try to push mandates. These things are completely un-American, and I think most Americans understand that. Most Americans realize it, and on the opposite side, they're doing these things out of desperation. They see that as their one last opportunity to push these totalitarian schemes of theirs. They're going to fail. They are failing, and the future really looks bright with Trumpworld as a movement moving forward, I think.
Right. And of course, in terms of that brightness, what we're talking about is bringing about the rescuing or the saving of America, making America great again, to use Trump language. But, of course, that cannot be simply accomplished. Simply by putting a president in a White House. There's more to it than that. And of course, one of the articles in Trumpworld has to do that, providing an agenda as to how America can be made great again. Would you mind summarizing that agenda?
Well, the onus on preserving freedom in the United States never could, never did, and never will fall down to a particular politician or to a particular leader. Even the founding generation, the founding fathers of this country realized the Constitution is for a moral people, and that encapsulates not only the importance of the morality of the people, but the activity of the people, people who are engaged with preserving their own freedom. That's what we have today. It's always been the same. It always will be the same. An activist American people who are fully engaged in the efforts to preserve their freedom is a people who will preserve their freedom. But contingent upon that is the need for people to always stay abreast of current events with the foundation of good understanding of their system of government. Absent that understanding, they won't be able to be effective. But what's been happening with Trumpworld, I think this is where it's so refreshing. people have been motivated to start that journey of learning. They've learned about their Constitution. They're willing to work to preserve it. Previously, there was just too much, I think, in this country, too much of an attitude. Well, I've got my own life to live. I've got to go to my job. I've got to take care of my family. I voted, so that's all taken care of now, and I can ignore that. I don't think Americans believe that any longer. I think Americans are fully engaged, and that makes for a bright future when Americans who are fully engaged understand the importance of freedom, understand the way freedom is preserved under our constitutional system, and they work to educate their fellow countrymen on that, and they move forward as a group. The future is really bright. I think this is the most optimistic time. Contrary to the events we've all seen, this is the most optimistic time we've had in many, many years.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I love about Trumpworld is that it just it not only defines what Trumpworld is, but it also provides some of that understanding that people need in order to preserve freedom. Some of the understanding of the principles of freedom, such as you want a government large enough to protect your liberties, but not so large that that government can devour the liberties that it's supposed to protect. So there's some real nuggets in Trumpworld to impart the understanding that good people need in order to effect change in a good way. Dennis, do you have any final thoughts regarding Trumpworld?
Well, first of all, the New American Magazine has been trying its best for many decades now to provide that understanding, the information that goes into that understanding that people need to have to be effective at making America great again. And in a sense, Trumpworld, this collector's edition, really takes that long-term mission and puts it together into a single issue that people can really enjoy from the point of view of how really beautifully it's put together, the wonderful writing that's in there, and can really take that as a foundation for something to be proud of, because they achieved Trumpworld.
Right.
They made that a reality in the real world. This commemorates that. And also, I think, sets the stage for being optimistic and working forward to achieving all the ends that we've been working for many years. And it's really a great time, and this is really a great commemorative tool as well as a tool for the future.
Well, we really appreciate the interview, Dennis, and really appreciate the fact that you conceived this collector's edition to begin with. And I think it's going to have great effect throughout America in terms of helping to restore our wonderful country to the way it was intended to begin with by our founding fathers. So,
well, that's very kind,
Thank
Gary.
you so much.
Also want to give a shout out to everyone on the New American team, from all of our writers and contributors to our production team to our graphics artists and designers. Everyone just did a wonderful job, and that goes to Gary, editor-in-chief for the New American Magazine, who has been doing amazing work for a long time to keep the New American fresh, lively, and relevant. So thank you, Gary.
Well, thank you, Dennis. And for those people who have not seen Trumpworld yet, would like to see it, please go to the description below this video, and you'll see information there as to how you can get one copy or multiple copies. Thank you so much.